It's a rematch of 2019 and 2001 before it. It's a contrast in vibes and a bit of a contrast in basketball philosophy. It's star-driven against synergy-driven, overhyped against underrated. There are plenty of differences between the Philadelphia 76ers and Toronto Raptors despite similar statistical profiles and records close enough that they're meeting in the Eastern Conference's no 4-5 seed matchup. Things get underway Saturday at 6 p.m. ET in Philadelphia, with broadcast details and the remainder of the series scheduled to come. What follows is a quick by my standards, look at the series, with the highest level stats and storylines you'll want to keep an eye on. Quick tape. 76ers, 51-31 number 13 offense number 11 defense number 9 net rating. Raptors, 48-30 for number 16 offense number 10 defense number 11 net rating. Season series, Raptors 3-1 Raptors plus 11. Game 1, November 11th, the Raptors went into Philly and came away with a 115-109 win. Encouraging? Absolutely. Relevant data point? Less so. Pascal Siakam and Joel Embiid both missed the game, and this came before the 76ers acquired James Harden. It was a heck of a Fred VanVleet game, though. Game 2, December 28th, despite having half their team in health and safety protocols, the Raptors nearly stole one at home, losing 114-109 to a Sixers team that was favored by double digits. This was maybe Embiid's best regular season game against Toronto, though it came with Chris Boucher starting at center and DJ Wilson and Daniel Oturu seeing minutes there off the bench. Game 3, March 20th, finally, some better data. Harden was around at this point, but the Raptors did a great job limiting both him and Embiid, insomuch as that's possible. A 93-88 victory on the road without VanVleet and Anunoby is impressive, though I never want to see the precious Akaya-Joakim-Birch duo start a playoff game. Game 4, April 7th, once again without VanVleet and Anunoby, the Raptors eke out a 119-114 home victory. It's emblematic of a lot of recent Toronto-Philly games, as the Raptors win 11 non-Embiid minutes by 13 points. Pulse of the Sixers. The Harden acquisition hasn't gone quite as swimmingly as they may have hoped. At their best, they look next to impossible to defend, a veritable parade of free throws with good size defensively. As they often have in Philly, and often have with Harden, warts revealed themselves quickly. Overall, Philly was 16-8 with Harden in the mix, but they only nudged a little higher as an offense, stayed level as a defense, and largely dug in on existing strengths and weaknesses. The vibes aren't great with Harden banged up, head coach Doc Rivers snapping at reporters for reasonable questions, and the team still having no idea how to survive minutes without Embiid. Pulse of the Raptors. The polar opposite of the Sixers in terms of vibes and pressure, the Raptors continued to beat expectations right down to the end of the season. While their overall stature is a tad behind Philly's, the Raptors finished the year 11th in net rating and in the middle of the league at both ends of the floor. They were a top 5 defense after the All-Star break and showed tangible, identifiable growth as a unit at that end. No team spent much time healthy this year, but the Raptors have the fortunate combination of their strength coalescing at the right moment and their players finally getting back to health. What's more, the Raptors were the league's third-best team against top 10 opponents this year and its second-best defense. This is a team that scales. Key 76ers numbers. 23.3. The 76ers free throw rate as a team, meaning they took .23 free throws for every one field goal attempt on the year. Since the acquisition of Harden, that leapt to .29. One of the Raptors' greatest areas of improvement over the course of the season was slowly cutting down on fouls within their hyper-aggressive scheme, but they'll be at a major disadvantage at the free throw line all series. Minus 3.6. The 76ers net rating with Embiid off the court, a number that barely improved with the addition of Harden. DeAndre Jordan is no longer a playoff-caliber rotation piece beyond his ability on the glass, and while Paul Reed has shown more utility as a small ball 5, Rivers has seemed hesitant to roll with him for any extended stretch. Toronto has to win, and probably dominate, every breather Embiid takes. 1.19, the number of points per possession the 7-6 ERS scored in transition, the best mark in the league. Ironically, almost no team runs less, largely because their two best players are so lean in a slower half-court environment. How you feel about this stat, and the volume versus efficiency trade-off, could go either way. Either the Raptors need to get back like all hell to limit these opportunities, or they trust one of the best transition defenses in the league while continuing to crash the offensive glass more than anyone outside of Memphis. Key Raptors numbers: 345, the number of minutes the core 5 and presumptive starters have played together this year. While that group's performance was trending in the right direction before Van Vliet and Anunoby were hurt down the stretch, the net rating of plus 0.5 on the season is hardly encouraging. The component parts lineup data suggests that this should be an effective group. It just may not be one you start automatically and lean on for 16 or 18 minutes a game, turning it instead into a situational or matchup-based look and likely closing unit. 1. The number of total games the 5 starters have come off the bench for this year. That was Gary Trent Jr. in the first game of the season. That is to say, if Nick Nurse decided to start a bulkier center Kiowa or Birch, due to Embiid's presence, it's not clear who the player to move to the second unit would be. Scotty Barnes makes the most sense in terms of role specifics and recent experience, but this postseason is very much about getting him a lot of high-leverage reps in addition to winning. Tough call. 17.3, the turnover rate the Raptors forced against the league's top 10 teams, easily the best mark in the NBA and actually higher than their mark against bottom 20 teams. Toronto's defense improved steadily as they cleaned up their defensive rebounding and penchant for fouling, but it's important to highlight that they did that without sacrificing their greatest strength, an aggression that renders opponents uncomfortable and helps fuel a transition attack. While Philly protects the ball well, they're an abhorrent transition defense when they do cough it up. The Thibault factor. About those non-Embiid minutes, well, their depth will take an even bigger hit in games in Toronto, as Matisse Thybulle is ineligible to play due to his vaccination status and current border restrictions. Philly moved Danny Green into the starting lineup for the team's recent visit to Toronto, then kept him there, likely because it will be too disruptive to change their starters game to game in a playoff series. Even if you think Thibulle's impact as an all-defense, no-offense piece is limited in a playoff environment, a team that runs about 6 players deep losing one of those 6 is troublesome. Thybulle was 5th on the team in minutes after the Harden acquisition, and the team had its best net rating with him on the floor. Georges Niang and Shake Milton aren't ready for primetime postseason roles beyond potentially getting hot on offense here and there. Who guards Gary Trent Jr., and how that ripples to the rest of the matchups, is a major decision on Rivers' plate. Editor's note: the COVID-19 situation in sports and around the world is constantly evolving. Readers in Canada can consult the country's public health website for the latest. The other Thybulle factor. When Thybulle is available, he becomes a fascinating basketball philosophical. How good do you have to be defensively to justify playing time when you are a complete non-factor on offense? That's not an exaggeration. On March 29th, the Bucks basically just didn't guard Thybulle whatsoever, and he made them pay with one shot attempt in 21 minutes. He took a whopping 13 attempts over the 71 minutes he played against the Raptors this year, admittedly scoring 19 points but not scaring anyone. Given the aggression of Nurse's notorious star-stopping defensive game plans, it stands to reason that Thybulle will be welcome to have a usage rate of 100%er in this series, should the 7-6 ERS so choose. Guarding Embiid. Thybulle's presence won't necessarily mean a strategy change for Nurse's defense. Even with better around him, the Raptors are willing to send multiple bodies to Embiid to make life difficult. This isn't just about trying to stop Embiid. It's about exacting a physical toll on him over the course of a game and series. Expect just about everyone to get a chance guarding him and using their 6 fouls as required, with plenty of physicality to force him away from the paint before the catch, plenty of collapsing into the paint when he penetrates, and double teams and dig downs from all sorts of angles, both on the catch and on his first dribble. Embiid has a stable argument as a top 3 player in the world right now. The Raptors will treat him as such. Guarding Siakam. Back in 2019, the 7-6 ERS deployed what was, at the time,